Today, cryptocurrencies bounce back from a brief sell-off after inflation unexpectedly rises in January. Trump taps a crypto policy expert at VC firm Andreessen Horowitz to lead the CFTC. And as the U.S. regulatory environment changes rapidly, Nathan Allman of Ondo Finance shares how institutions are thinking about crypto this year. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Katie Tarasov. Crypto markets bouncing back after hotter than expected inflation data in January initially pushed digital currencies lower. As of noon Eastern, Bitcoin climbed more than 0.5%. Ether was mostly flat, and Dogecoin inched higher by 0.6%. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. Trump family-backed crypto project World Liberty Financial is launching what it calls a macro strategy, or a strategic token reserve. The company shared the news on X yesterday, saying the reserve is designed to, quote, bolster leading projects like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies. The goal of the macro strategy is to diversify World Liberty's holdings across various tokenized assets and mitigate volatility. According to a document issued by World Liberty, the Trump family could get 75% of the project's net revenue, while assuming no liability. Next, President Trump picked former CFTC Commissioner Brian Quintenz to lead that agency. Quintenz shared the news on X this morning, saying the agency is in a good position to ensure the U.S. leads in blockchain tech and innovation. This pick marks yet another crypto-friendly pick by the president, as Quintenz currently heads policy for A16z's crypto arm. Former chair Rostin Benham stepped down from the role last month on Inauguration Day, and the regulator is being led by Caroline Pham in the interim. Finally, crypto custodian Bitcoin is reportedly weighing an IPO. That's according to Bloomberg, which reported yesterday that deliberations are ongoing and no final decisions have been made. This comes as the industry grows optimistic about its future in the U.S. under the Trump administration. BitGo's CEO, Mike Belshie, contributed $100,000 to Trump's 2024 campaign and reportedly held a fundraiser in Silicon Valley for then-candidate Trump. Bloomberg also reported last week that crypto exchange Gemini is considering an IPO, but hasn't made a decision. Its founders, the Winklevoss twins, were major backers of President Trump, too. Circle is another major crypto firm looking to IPO on a U.S. exchange. After a SPAC merger was scrapped, the company submitted a draft S-1 form in January of 2024, but little has been said since. Last October, stablecoin issuer Circle's Jeremy Allaire told Crypto World that going public is, quote, critical to the company's future. He also said becoming a publicly traded company would increase trust and transparency. Okay, let's talk about institutional crypto sentiment for our main story. Ondo Finance held a summit in New York City last week, hearing from business leaders on the future of on-chain finance. Crypto World's Tanea McKeel spoke with Ondo's CEO Nathan Allman about the biggest priorities and hurdles for institutions.
All right, Nate, well, thank you so much for joining us on set at Crypto World today. You guys just held Ondo Summit last week, and that was focused on Wall Street 2.0 and institutional grade on-chain finance. Tell me, what does that look like? What does that mean? And what is sort of the dream that you all gathered to discuss?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. So we hosted last Thursday our first ever Ondo Summit, brought together about 250 leaders from both crypto, so leading layer one blockchains and DeFi protocols, and then also traditional financial services, had heads of digital assets at BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, BNY, a bunch of other traditional financial organizations. At Ondo, we describe ourselves as building institutional grade products, platforms, and infrastructure to catalyze the movement of capital markets on chain. And that really requires that we sit at the intersection of crypto and traditional finance and bring together a lot of these diverse players. So it was really exciting to have a lot of these conversations about, what we think the future of finance is going to look like on chain in the next few years.
A lot of big names that you just listed off. What do your conversations with companies like that look like right now? We just had a huge, sort of rise of Bitcoin last year, not just in the price, but just the interest on the institutional side and the demand for Bitcoin, and then a regime change after the election this year. So right now, how are clients feeling? What are you hearing from the institutions about crypto this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, certainly with the new administration in place and some of the actions they've already taken like the repeal of SAB 121 as an example, the tone has already shifted pretty dramatically in a positive direction, towards what we can do with on-chain finance. I guess I'll bucket my answer into a few different categories. Asset managers have really been leading the way on the institutional front. Even in the old administration, we saw, BlackRock launch their tokenized treasuries fund, Franklin Templeton launch its fund, and there's a few other major ones on the horizon. So, I'd say things are continuing in the positive direction they've been going in with those asset managers. But where it's really exciting to see new progress is with banks and broker-dealers who previously really weren't able to touch public blockchains at all in an interesting way. And we're, starting to see some progress in that potentially changing. There's still some issues with conventional bona fide public blockchains that we're starting to address with OndoChain, which is our hybrid public permission chain with permission validators, but public code deployment access and so on. Really exciting to bring together both asset managers who've been at the forefront and then also banks and broker dealers. And then on the crypto native side, exchanges, wallets, protocols, these businesses have really not been able to offer traditional securities at all historically. I mean, crypto is still this casino for meme coins and, other reflexive tokens. And so there's a ton of enthusiasm from that crowd around learning about, the types of securities and other traditional assets that they can offer to their clients.
In terms of challenges and obstacles, what are some of the big ones right now beyond regulation? And actually, to what extent, if you could start with regulation, actually, to what extent is that still seen as a hurdle or a complication given, the change in tune that we've seen under the new administration?
Totally. For a lot of crypto native companies, they're looking for clarity on pretty complicated questions like what is and isn't a security. And that's going to require new legislation and time to figure out. In our case, and really the case of the tokenized security space, I think that we really just need some clarity around the edges about how we can comply with existing securities laws while using blockchain technology. There's already been a lot of progress made, over the last several years, in this direction. If you look at what Franklin Templeton has done with their registered Treasuries money market fund, just last year, they were able to get approval from the SEC to have the tokens be transferable. And so, really looking forward to engaging with the new administration to get, even more clarity on how we can continue to do, interesting things with, using blockchain as a record of ownership for regulated securities in the United States. For now, given that we don't quite have that clarity, we're focused on distributing tokenized securities outside the United States. So one of the things we announced right before the Ondo Summit was Ondo Global Markets, which is our platform for tokenizing exposure to publicly traded US securities, but in wrappers that are accessible only outside the United States. And these are going to be in bearer tokens, similar to stablecoins that can be transferred effectively freely in secondary markets.
When we look at the market for tokenized securities, we at CNBC have been talking about it for a couple of years now because we hear that this is what the institutions are interested in. What does progress or success this year look like? Like by the end of this year, how will the market have grown or changed? What do you hope to see? And how do you plan to be part of it?
Yeah, well, we're starting from very early days in terms of adoption. I mean, there's been a lot of experimentation, a lot of pilots and proof of concepts dating back as early as 2016 around tokenization. There's a lot of investment in 2018. Before founding Ondo, I worked at Goldman on the digital assets team and helped them in 2019, 2020. with things like, we helped the European Investment Bank issue a bond, a $100 million rated bond on public Ethereum. But none of these have really broken into the realm of, real commercial utility for real users. In our opinion, that's been in part because there hasn't been until recently meaningful on-chain financial infrastructure, so trading, lending, derivatives, protocols that were ready to be repurposed to be used for securities. And so that's really what we're doing at Ondo. We're trying to take battle-tested DeFi technology and apply it for these already very liquid traditional securities. So I think we'll make a lot of progress on that front this year, and excited to see the rollout.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.